everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney phone-in show. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, your host and the author of the Positively Disney book series. Just want to welcome my Facebook folks and Twitch TV folks out there today. We are actually having a very lovely day in Seattle, and I hope you are all doing well. So, in light of things happening around the world and all of you folks having your children home with you, schooling them, I thought it would be really appropriate maybe to share some of my knowledge in that area. Most of you probably didn't know that I have over 30 years of teaching experience. And I was figuring it out today, and it was like I have 18 years with a Montessori school. I have 14 years of homeschooling experience and 10 years of public school classroom experience. And I have so much that I can share, but of course I'm limited in my time. And I wanted to also make it fun with a bit of a twist, a Disney twist to it. Now, one thing that I wanted to just share with you, my mom actually told me this morning. She had spotted this kind of this cartoon. Well, not really cartoon. It was actually a photo of these children sitting around the kitchen table and their father at one end while they were at the other. And there was a sign posted, "You think you have it bad. Can you imagine what it's like to be isolating with your principal?" And here it shows these kids, their dad was the principal of their school. And so they're undergoing quite a transformation at home. But, something that I wanted to share with you, because as a classroom teacher and then a homeschooler, something I had to do is realize that classroom teaching is very, very different than a homeschool setting, particularly if you're an educator. And one thing I wanted to say is that I actually had to unlearn my classroom teacher mode for my homeschool mode. And I'm going to talk a little bit about just a few ideas before we get into two of my subject areas that I want to share. Of course, language arts, one of my favorite, and some backyard science and some fun activities to do that you may or may not have heard before, but these are just some ideas that I have gleaned. So, one thing you want to do is that you want to make a plan every day. Have a quick 10-minute meeting in the morning and determine what each child wants to accomplish. And that way, there's a good communication going on. You need to let your expectations and vice versa, for if you're working, of course, while your children are homeschooling, what expectations they have for your working, and so communication is key. But that little 10-minute meeting will set the tone and set the day. And yeah, you guys aren't used to that necessarily, but I'll tell you, it goes a long way because everybody's on the same page then. And another thing that I wanted to share with you, and it may sound like old school or for young children, but you know what? Read to your children. Find a time towards the end of the day or the afternoon and just take 15, 20 minutes to read them. I know when I was teaching high school English, I still read to my students because not only from that vantage point, there are words that they are still learning the correct meanings of, correct pronunciations of. But for young children and elementary, this is pre-reading for them, and also it people that are read to are better readers. So I wanted to share with you just a few little books that I had. I mean, I've honestly, I can say I've read thousands of books over the years. There are a few that really stand out for me, and I wanted to share probably one of the number one books that I had no idea how amazing it was going to be. When I was living in Alberta, I found out that this guy actually worked for the Edmonton Oilers back in Alberta, and he wrote the Uncle Dunkle Chronicles. And it's all about Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island and adventure on there, sort of a modern day adventure with pirates and all kinds of things. I'll tell you, this book that we had been reading, a lot of times for the kids, we'd read whatever, 20 minutes, whatever. We we would read about 7 chapters and we were almost falling asleep reading it because it was so good. So I highly recommend that. You can actually get it in a used section of Amazon and maybe somewhere on eBay. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, it's not like a regularly available book on Amazon, but it is, you can get it used on there. Another couple of books I really wanted to share with you that were really, really good. It's called My Side of the Mountain. There's actually, I believe there's at least 2, maybe even, I think there's 3 in this. And it's about a boy that he actually runs away from New York, but it's set in a very different time. And he creates his tree house and inside his tree and all the things that he does for survival, which is really quite fascinating. So I highly recommend that one. It's actually a Caldecott Award winner as well. And then now, interestingly enough, Disney did a movie on this. And to be honest with you, I never watched the movies, both versions. I just couldn't bring myself to watching it after reading A Wrinkle in Time series. This is a very fascinating read. It doesn't ever go out. And you can read these books to, your elementary students. Share in the story because honestly, you guys will really love it too. And I have to tell you, I came across a really fun little book for young people. I'm just grabbing it here and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. But this is a book that we had so much fun with. I think there's 2 or 3 of them out. It's called Walter the Farting Dog. And of course, little kids, when they hear that word, they start giggling anyways. And it's really fun. A dog story and the reality of farts with dogs is really super cute. So anyways, I just have to share one little thing too. I came across this and it's missing its front cover, but it's actually all the songs to Pirate, Grim Grinning Ghost, Zippity Doodah, It's a Small World, Bear Band, Serenade, and a whole Tiki Tiki Room, all the words to the songs. And I think at one point we must have done this listening to one of the CDs or music or whatever. So you can check that out. I'm sure the words are online if you want to have sort of some fun. Okay, language arts. So years ago, I learned about something called the Mark Twain shelf. And what it is, it's gathering 4 or 5 objects and creating a story. So I grabbed a few objects that I had laying around. I have a stormtrooper, I have a lock, and I have a screwdriver, and I have a duck horn. Now, something that you could do is you could write a story, like maybe the stormtrooper's looking for his lost leg, or you can actually have one of the Disney characters that came across this. And since Donald tends to get himself into some trouble, you could actually add Donald and a stormtrooper leg. Anyways, these are just 4 random objects, and you create a story from those objects. And that's called the Mark Twain shelf. Just things from around your house, stuffies that you have, Disney stuffies, whatever you want. There's another idea that I had. So we already know who the Fab Five are. And then we've got the Winnie the Pooh characters. What would happen if you got Donald Duck and Tigger together to go on a journey? There's a lot of things that could happen. I would imagine Donald would be very irritated many times by Tigger, but loved anyways because of Tigger's natural exuberance and energy, which brings me to another story type that you can do. So one thing that is always fun is choosing a mode of transportation. The first thing in another type of creative story is you want to choose a mode of transportation. And I just randomly picked a bot, one of my modes of transportation, or a Skyliner, or a less obvious would be on the back of a flamingo, or even Sven. So the sky's the limit, really, on your modes of transportation. I even have a Disney bus. A Disney bus. and I have a monorail. The thing about the mode of transportation is you are going to choose a place. And these are not going to necessarily take you to Disney, but they are Disney vehicles that you can take somewhere to a magical place. Or it might be the only thing left working in your town that you can travel with. Now, you've got your mode of transportation and you want to use a character. It could be you and Mickey, it could be you and Goofy. It could be you and one of whoops, one of our folks from the Haunted Mansion that you might end up taking a seat with unbeknownst to you in the Skyliner. Or you could take a hot air balloon or whatever. As long as you figure out a mode of transportation, the crazier the better because it's more creative. Pick a character, yourself and somebody else, or just yourself and your best friend. Another thing that you have to think about too is you want to get a little more detailed in what place you want to go to and maybe what era you are in. Maybe you are taking the monorail and all of a sudden it goes and zips into the future. Or maybe it goes into the past and then you've got a problem because you're on a monorail, a futuristic kind of vehicle, and you end up in the past. By the way, just want to let you know that this is being recorded. So anything that you miss, you can catch on the recorded version of it as soon as we're off. So, anyways, those are a couple of ideas for real creative writing. For those children that aren't quite writers, have them record a story. You can get an easy app for your iPhone or whatever, and they could read a story or create a story, again, based on the Mark Twain shelf, choosing a few items, have them record a little story for you and write it, hand print it in front of them. So they are learning to see what their words are in their story and read it together at the same time, just so they get an idea of what the words are from their own story, because not all kids are able to write stories. So you can do that as well. Another idea for young children to create stories, have them do little storyboarding in the sense that have them draw, maybe divide a piece of paper into 6 different little boxes and have them create, whether it's a stick figure or not, have them create their story in each box. And then you can actually have them tell you the story and you can write it together. But those are kinds of things that they can do on their own. And then after they have finished, they can come together with your help. One thing that I always encourage you to do is during that plan at the beginning of the day, put in some time for fun, which I'll talk about after, but also time for them to present their work, because it's really good to have that feedback at the end of the day. Just for take 10 minutes. Therefore, you're interested, you're showing interest in your children's work, and your children know that you are interested. And so it's kind of like a natural motivator for them when they have an audience. We all like to have an audience for our work, especially as a young child. So it gives them a time. They're not constantly interrupting your work day or your work time, I should say, but you can have it scheduled in there for later on in the day. Another idea for writing for upper elementary, junior high school kids, find out the history of the attractions and write a presentation about that. So you're getting your research in. You can set a deadline, for a week to finish the project or whatever. Have them do a draft of it, read it back to them so they can hear whether it makes sense or not, and then have them do a final copy. Now, I always prefer, and I made sure of this actually, that my kids and my students, I made sure that they hand wrote their rough draft. If they absolutely balk at that, we just want the creative process to go forward, although the creative process comes through a lot through the pen, pencil, and that whole flow of writing. But if they just want to use the keyboard, then so be it. But it's really important to sort of have those stages and then have them present it to the family. Another idea that is really good for young people, little people, or even people that are learning second languages, label things in your house. Label the word chair and put it always in lowercase letters. You don't want capitals or anything unless it's you're labeling yourself or whatever. But you want to label things. I know when my kids were growing up, we had wall, we had chair, we had counter, we had mirror, we had door, all those things. Children need to see these words. It helps. It helps them remember how to spell these words, how to read these words when they see them written on the particular object. So, highly recommend that. Something that is really fun too is if you have a little Disney label or Disney sticker or whatever, to put that on, and they'll kind of gravitate towards that a little bit as well. Okay. Here's a really important stage of pre-reading, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten. It really depends on, where your children are at. Any classroom teacher will tell you that if you have 20 kids in your class, you have 20 different learning levels. So just be prepared for that your kids, whatever age they are going to be learning at their own pace and have their own level. So one thing that how I introduced my children to the alphabet, it wasn't by saying the alphabet. I would introduce 3 letters at a time. So I would have, you could do this on a whiteboard if you have a whiteboard, or just like a pad of paper or something. But always start with lowercase letters. And for example, if I had, let's see, what do I have? Oh, if I had a B, I'd put a label B, and we'd say B, and we'd just pronounce the sound of it, and we'd put something with it. Now, this is kind of big, the bus, but B for bus, and put it on a tray, but only 3 at a time. Take a week to, well, at least 3 days for them to learn those letters individually. And then you can take the cards and you can show them the cards and have them repeat what it is after they've already been assigned, the card with the object. And then kind of take 2 and compare 2 at a time, and then the 3 at a time. And you will be really surprised at how quickly your children will learn the phonetic sound of the alphabet. That's how they learn. And so letters that have like a hard and a soft sound, like letter C for S and K, you can find objects in your house that would identify those, and then you would just put those 2 together. But again, just take a cookie sheet, whatever, put the object, match it with the letter. Another thing that I did with my kids, I use sandpaper letters. I cut out a sandpaper, but you can also do this with like a little cake pan or something. Put a little bit of flour in there, or salt if you got a whack load of salt, and have the children feel the formation of the letter. You want them to tactily feel what it feels like for the letter. Now, parents, we all get into bad habits for printing. So you want to make sure, or you can do cursive writing this way as well, individual letters, if you want to engage your children in cursive writing. But look on the internet. They will have actual ways of doing the correct formation of the letters. So you want to do the correct one and teach your kids the correct way as well. And you could start out with their name, and always, always, always start with their name with a capital letter, and make sure they got the lowercase for the rest, because they'll tell you, and any teacher will tell you this, it's a lot easier to learn from the get-go than undoing bad habits like all capitals for a name. So just take that whatever way you want. Another way of doing letters, and then I'll get on to some other stuff, is there's lots of sort of Play-Doh salt with salt and flour and that. recipes online. You make a snake, roll out like a little snake, and you can actually form the letter. And that's just another tactile way for their brain to absorb the formation of the letter or the number or whatever, you're working on there. Okay. That's sort of some language arts in a nutshell. And please know, I mean, if you guys are Disney fans, you are going to have all kinds of things at your fingertips with the princesses, with the little stuffies, with objects, with whatever. Use those for helping for spelling, for writing, for printing, whatever. Use those because that will grab their attention and you will en- have them engage with you more when they're interested. Just like us, if we're interested in something, we're going to learn it, right? If we're not interested, it's going to be kind of a pain for us. As adults, we'll still learn it, but reluctantly. Okay. I had 5 sheets of paper here, so I'm just kind of going to go through a few things. It's getting to be springtime in our neck of the woods. I know some places in Canada are still kind of under snow, but I'm just going to kind of speak to generally. I will assume that the snow is melting and things of that. So, one thing that I really enjoyed with my kids is backyard science. Um, I love science actually. I love mathematics and language arts. And one thing that I want you to realize is that in this whole at home thing, as long as your kids are doing language arts, writing, reading, um, and mathematical skills, that carries over into every subject area. Keep those two things up, and the rest is gravy, really. I have no idea how the teachers are really doing this. I mean, they're going to give so much homework or so much written work. I know for me that sometimes with math, if the kid we did mastery learning, so if the kids got it, I'd have them just do like every even number or odd number in math because sometimes like I don't know 60 to 100 math problems, honestly it was too much. And one thing that a classroom teacher has to do is do things for crowd control, and that's the honest truth. So crowd control at home is not the same thing as crowd control with 25 to 30 kids. So just remember that they are going through this kind of situation too. And the more fun you can make it and light you can make it, the better. So when you have your homeschool day, I was talking about fun. I find backyard science just fun. So what can you do? What do I mean by backyard science? Well, okay. You can actually learn the scientific method, which is the same for anything that you're doing in science experiments in your backyard. So you can, for example, you in the scientific method, you want to ask yourself a question. Okay, so how many are you could say are the birds? What hour of the day are the birds feeding the most? If you have a bird feeder, for example, or what? I'll do something a little on the side. Which type of lettuce grows quicker, butter lettuce or romaine lettuce? So let's put the backyard part just aside for a second. When my daughter was over, she actually went through my fridge and started a windowsill garden for me, and she just shaved the bottom of the lettuce, the romaine lettuce, and the butter lettuce, and it will start growing for me again. But something that you can do is that's a question. That's part of the scientific method. Which type of lettuce will grow faster? So what happens? Well, you can guess. Maybe one of the kids is going to guess butter lettuce. Maybe the other child is going to guess romaine lettuce. You want to put that guess in. It's called the hypothesis. You observe and you measure. You record each week if there's any change. You can analyze it. You can graph it. Just those simple bar graphs are very easy. They can color in the bar graph. They can measure. This is all to do with mathematics, science, and if they are recording it, hey, they're writing. But it's fun because they actually get to check that out. So back to our scientific method. I'm sorry I went through it really quick, but you can find that information online. But it's just fun to do experiments. And there's lots of ideas for experiments out there. But backyard science, you can, as I said, with the birds, you can do feeding habits. You can take a photo, learn their names, learn maybe some other things about them. You can, I'm sure most people have rocks in their backyard of some sort. You can learn the three kinds of rocks that we have: sedimentary, that's formed by, sand and different, shells, pebbles, and that. And then you've got the metamorphic rocks that are sort of like layers, and there's crystals in them, and igneous, which is sort of from the molten lava, both inside the earth and outside the earth, forming. When it cools, it hardens, so you'll see maybe shiny glass like, or tiny holes in spaces. So you can look at, and you can have a rock collection. You could just gather rocks and come in and then study those rocks and label them. Again, trays are great because it keeps things organized. They could learn to print the name of the rock beside it, that kind of thing. Another thing that is good for young children is botany, plants, study of plants. So those leaves in your trees, if you have leaves in your trees, or the branches of the coniferous, the evergreens out there, you can actually, they can learn what's curvy, what's serrated, edged. If you have different coniferous trees, you can maybe take a little snippet and study it, and describe it and smell it and things like that, and find out the name of it and write it. So those are some of the things that you can do for some backyard stuff. For those of you that have flowers, actual flowers growing in your yard, if I'm not sure, what part of the country that you all have lots of flowers, but you might. Something that is really fun for young children to do. Everybody should learn proper snipping of flowers. So you're snipping flowers, making sure that it's in water in a vase, and they could kind of learn some flower arranging, which is kind of nice, and learn to, trim down that stem every once in a while, and just arrange it. Oh, for those of you that are still under snow or have some snow, take a couple of jars and, put a little label on and name it, say Gaston's jar, or you might say Cinderella's jar. And you could put one jar with the same amount of snow, say a cup of snow in each of them, put one in a dark place and sunny place, and one in a lighter place, and see how long it will take for it to melt. Is there one that will melt over the other? Again, using the scientific method for young children. I wanted to tell you about a couple of fun things as well. But another thing that backyard science you can do, if you have a fireplace, or you have one of those, we just have sort of one of those freestanding fireplace. We can move it wherever we are in the yard, wood burning fireplace. Something that's really fun is campfire cooking. And one of my favorite recipes, and this is also science, is fractions with learning to bake. So one of the things I'm going to teach you just really quickly today, it's called cake in an orange. And if you have your campfire, you want to prepare this, of course, before you light your campfire. But you're going to take a navel orange. You're going to trim it just a little bit off the top. You scoop out the orange, and you're going to put a cake mix about 3/4 of the way up. I've got a really, really easy cake mix for you. We called it wacky cake. I got it from a neighbor like in the 70s. And it's a family, it's very easy. You'll have everything with you, but I'm going to just tell you the ingredients really, really quickly. So what you need for wacky cake is 1.5 cups of flour, a cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa, a teaspoon of baking powder and baking soda. You mix it, and half a teaspoon of salt. Mix it all up. It's got all your dry ingredients. Make 3 little wells. And in that well, you're going to put 1/3 of a cup of oil, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Then you're going to pour a cup of water in there and stir it. Now that's cooking, that's baking, and it's going to be turning into backyard science, because once those ingredients are all mixed up, you're going to fill up your orange 3/4 full. Put aluminum foil around. Remember to put the shiny side in, because of reflection. That's another thing the kids can learn about reflection of heat. And so you want to keep that shiny side inside, and you're going to stick it in your fire for about, I'd say about 20 minutes or so. Check it every once in a while with your oven mitts, and it is an absolutely delicious little thing. Another thing that you can do, which is pretty easy, and it's called dump cake. And again, you can use any recipe for cake, or this one. I mean, sometimes we don't have cake mixes at our fingertips, and you can use this wacky cake one. By the way, if you're not that thrilled about chocolate cake, this is a nice chocolate cake. It's not too chocolatey, but you can just leave the cocoa out. At any rate, you can take your make up your cake batter, and if you have a can of cherries or pie filling of some sort, I mean cherry pie filling, dump it in, and you can keep a little bit of it. When I say dump it in, I shouldn't say just dump it in. What you want to do is, if you have a cooking pot for the fire, great. Most of us don't. So use that tin can that your pie filling is in. Put a little bit of your cake dough in there. Put a little pie filling, again, that tin foil, and stick it in the fire. And then you can always check it with a toothpick, make sure it's done. That's part of your backyard science that you can do. And you could name it like I don't know, whatever you want. Woody and Jesse's backyard campfire. You could name whatever you want to. You could use some of your old time recipes and create a cake from that as well. So just a few little ideas, but you can use the characters. Little young kids would really enjoy knowing that Jesse and Woody, with their campfires and their whole Western theme going on, would make this themselves. Another thing I want to touch on is some of the fun things, because you know what, guys, this is kind of a pain for most of us, and sometimes we forget about having fun. And one thing I want to say too is that as you already know, a homeschool day is not like a regular day at all. And know that sometimes things are going to work and sometimes things aren't, and just go with it. But the thing is that you want to do is you want to still be respectful of each other, even if you're having a hard day, your kids are maybe not doing what you want them to do, or you're under stress for something or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still a family, and you still want to be happy, particularly during this time. So these are some fun things that I want to tell you about. Play outside. I don't care what kind of day it is. Play outside with your kids. You guys need to get out for 15-20 minutes, and so do they. I got tired of just walking the dog, and I ended up on this past, I think it was like Saturday, I ended up playing 21 basketball at the local school. There was nobody there, of course, and you're not allowed to gather. I know parks are closed, but this is just a sample of what we did, because we don't have a basketball hoop in our yard. But I went down and played 21 with him. And you know what? I never played 21 with him, and he doesn't know it, but I won the free shot basketball competition when I was in junior high. But it was just fun, because it was playing. It's so much fun to play. If you have a frisbee, games in your yard, or just be creative in and different games you can play, or do something outside. If it's still winter in your neck of the woods and you have a picnic table outside, get bundled up and have your lunch outside. Just try to get out into your yard if you can, because it's really important for you as well, as I said, to get that fresh air. And have them teach you a game. They know a lot of games. They probably know more than you at this point. So have them teach a game, either outside or a board game. Have a dedicated family night or two or three for just fun board games. I've been learning some games that I would never have thought of playing before, and they're actually really fun. Uh, oh, another one I really love is a dream book. I don't know if you guys have magazines laying around. I mean, you might not. So I'm not too sure how that would work. But if you do have magazines, create a dream book. And it's basically cutting out pictures of everything you would like or would like to be. And you can either in a book or on a larger piece of paper, a poster board, or something that you have. And it would be it's really neat actually to see the and look at everybody else's and see what they like to what they want in life, what they aspire to. And it was really strange. I came across a dream book that I had done. I'm going to grab it here, hopefully without dumping anything down here. But I came across something, and it was really strange because I had cut out an arrow garden. Now I had done that particular picture I think 2 years ago, and guess what? I have an arrow garden in my kitchen now that I got about a week ago, and it's really odd, sort of those dream books, how certain things can happen. So, what are you guys all missing? What do you want? Well, I want a vacation. I'd love to go to Disney. And I know that we had a large coffee can. You can use anything really. You can cut out, if you want to just even cut out sort of pictures and use some glue to glue it on. If you have some liquid glue and water to adhere it a little bit more. That was our vacation can. And the odd thing about it, and I should have found it for you because I mean, I haven't had it, I haven't used it in years. But every single thing that is on that can happened. I had put at one time a red Durango. I had put a sailboat. I had put, just a cruise ship. I put all these things on there that we wanted to do, wanted to go on vacation with, and every single thing happened. And we put our extra coins in there or whatever. But try it. You can do it, as I said, as a family with a tin can and save your money, or as I said, on a piece of bristle board or whatever. It really is lovely. Another thing that is kind of fun, who doesn't like to find treasure? Have your kids take something that they don't mind burying for a little while, put it in a Ziploc, bury it in the backyard, and make sure they tell you, maybe one of you parents, where it is, and have them draw a treasure map for their siblings or the other parent to find, and to give directions and things like that. And you could do it by picture wise, or you could give it by directions, or they could even label things. So you could kind of do a pirate adventure, because I don't know about you guys, but Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my all-time favorite rides. So that would be kind of a fun backyard thing to do. And you're learning about directions. You can make sure there's, of course, on a map, not maybe necessarily in a pirate map, but for our sake, do your pirate map and figure out the directions: north, south, east, west, northwest, southwest, southeast, and so on and so forth. And they're learning a little bit about mapping. Another thing that I want to tell you about that's really fun to do is building a fort. If you have the space to build a fort, and do your reading in the evening with a flashlight or something. Do a camp out one night. What the heck, Friday night or a non-school day, sleep out, or have the kids sleep out in their fort. You'll see how just how fun that can be, really. And I want to share one last thing with you, because I've gone through a lot of things, and I had a whole lot more, and I've really pared it down. But I wanted to share with you that, and this is a an individual or a group activity as well. Or if you have more than one child, you can kind of get them together to do that. Create your dream vacation. Create your Disney dream vacation if no money was an object. Decide where you'd want to go, what you'd want to do, what time of year would you like to do it in, who would you like to come along with you, what are some of the things you would like to do. The sky is the limit. Just dream it and just do it and share it with the family. And it might be interesting to see how some of those ideas compare with other family members. But I'm always about dreaming, thinking, creating, because, well, as one famous guy named Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And he wasn't disputing that knowledge was important, but truly, you can learn things. Knowledge is acquired, but your imagination comes from within. So if you guys as parents can set up your environment that will infuse creativity in whatever form, you're on the right track, and you're going to have happier kids. And I'll tell you, if you have happy kids, you're going to have a happy life, particularly during this time. I don't know if any of you guys have any questions for me, if you want any ideas or anything that you want me to touch upon. But if you do, make a comment, and if I am not going to answer it right now, I will answer it later. But I do want to just I see a few people up here: Gina, Lisa, Amy, Layla, Leah, Heather, Kelly, Donna, Joe, Seth, Michelle, Paul, Jennifer. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And there is other folks on here that on my Twitch followers as well. If you have any questions pertaining to your children or some ideas with whatever subject matter you're dealing with, but add that Disney flavor, add that Disney twist, and you're going to have some really fun adventures. And we are, I think, through the worst of it now, and things are going to be opening up. And I'll tell you, everybody's going to have a new appreciation for just even the littlest of things. Paul says, I hope you're all keeping well. Paul, yes, we are. Thank you. My husband has been working from home. This is going into week 6 for us in Washington State. And my sons are finishing projects and so on, because I think it's, next week is their finals week. With some exams happening, and then they're finished for the semester. And I've got another son that is going to start class in summer school, and I'm just I've got a little surprise for you next week to introduce you. I'm going to just give you a little hint. It's a new addition to our family that we are picking up tomorrow, and I will introduce this new addition on my next show Monday. And for any of you that have joined halfway through or a little bit into the show, just remember that usually a few minutes once we're off the air, you can actually take a look at the show on the recorded version. But I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are, and I really look forward to my Disney days again. That's for darn sure. And in the meanwhile, we just, we do things, we take it one day at a time for sure. And, those of you that have children or grandchildren, there's a lot of activities you can do, and just put that Disney spin on it. Just, gather whatever you have that you have, available in your house, that you can make it fun. And if you don't have certain things in your house, you can always just pull it out of your imagination. If you want to send Donald Duck and Tigger on a journey, what would happen and where could they go, and what could they what form of transportation? Are they going to take a flamingo? Are they going to ride on Sven? What are they going to do? What kinds of things can they get themselves into? So I will probably end there now. I don't see any questions coming in at the moment, but I just really want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. And I hope I have shared some little things with you, but I just want you to know that we'll get through this. You are already doing a fantastic job being a parent and being at home as a family, because it's not easy when you're not used to having your children around. That was a choice that we had made after my children had finished Montessori school and were starting grade one. To homeschool, my children were Irish dancers. And so as they got into their performances and competitions, um, quite more, a lot more seriously, that was the best method, an option for us. Lots of people homeschool for a variety of reasons, and I was very fortunate to be an educator. But guess what? If there's anything I can tell you, parents out there, you do not have to be a professional. You do not have to be an educator to teach your children. But what you do need to do is you need to take an interest and be willing to learn yourself. And that is the secret to homeschooling. Being able to learn along with your children and develop that love of learning. I will leave that with you now. I hope you guys had a great Easter. I know we did. We did something really crazy. We did a little craft that my friend not Donna Joe, sorry, Donna Collins had shared with us, making these pom pom bunnies, and I had bought goodies and Easter grass and little baskets and that. And my daughter and I, while my sons were doing their schoolwork yesterday, and my husband was cooking our turkey dinner, she and I went for about 3 hours all over the different cities we have adjoining, delivering baskets to friends. We just put a card in the basket on their doorstep, and sometimes we knocked on the door. We just text them to open their doors, and we'd be gone. But it was really fun to do something like that. I had never thought I would be doing something like that, but I like to have fun. I like to bring joy to people. I think that's something that is one of the things that makes me tick. And I think I've always been like that. And so it was just kind of fun to be able to do that. And I miss my friends near and far. And so that was an opportunity for me to actually just say a quick hello or wave from the car. So, anyways, Charlotte, thank you for joining me. And I know you've just joined, but as I mentioned before, this is on the replay as soon as we're off the air. And I'm going to say goodbye now. And I hope you guys just be well, stay healthy, be safe, and we will see you next week. Take care, guys. Bye for now.